Hello valued viewers, I hope you're all doing very well. It's Saturday today and I've got a rare few free hours, so I thought I'd get on with some of the BMW work. The latest thing, or the latest problem I've spotted, this is the rear differential. Now can you see it's all very moist underneath, and if we get near the front maybe you can see obviously there's fluid leaking from the differential, and it's clear that it's coming from the front. It can only really come from three seals, either the front pinion seal or two of the side seals, and the side seals are all dry, so it's the front pinion seal that's clearly gone. It's just a little rubber seal that seals two metal surfaces. So we can't just leave it like that. Well, in fact there's two options. You could either leave it like that and just keep filling up the diff, but no one really wants to do that, so it really needs to be sorted, and now is a good time. Which gives us two options. One, we can, when I bought this car, when I traded this car in, I actually got 3 months warranty for free, which is great. So it is technically under warranty and I could get it done for free, which I'm not going to lie, sounds an incredibly attractive option, but I'm a bit weird, and if it's at all possible, I'd like to do the job myself, because it's another kind of tool I can learn for some weird future use that probably will never exist. So it's something we probably can do ourselves, and so I think we should do ourselves. It's a job really that would usually be done with the diff still on the car. However, bearing in mind I don't have a proper lift, I've just got, you know, the car up on blocks at the moment. I don't think I've got it in me to repair a seal on a diff underneath the car laying upside down. So I think we're going to have to remove the entire diff assembly, put it up on a bench and tackle it that way. There is some risk in doing it. It's not just, you know, nuts and bolts. You've got to get torque as well as thrust settings right, because it's a drivetrain component. I've never actually done it before, so I am a little bit nervous but also a little bit excited. Also, if I screw this up, which is very possible to screw the diff up doing this, that's a, I don't know what it is, I guess a $2,000 at least plus shipping diff to get another one, so we really don't want to screw it up. We'll need to remove the propeller shaft, which is just Torx bolts. We'll need to remove the drive shaft, which is just more torque bolt by the looks of it. Remove the diff from the frame. I don't see any oil cooler to worry about, so we'll get the diff removed. Welcome back valued viewers. As you can see, off the car. I thought I would update at this point, just in case it helps someone at some point, the procedure for getting the diff off the car. First things first, it's incredibly difficult. I've taken probably, I don't know, 100 diffs off various Japanese cars due to my old job, and it was just a few bolts, put the jack underneath, drop it down, boom. This car, not so much. First thing is to disconnect the drive shafts from the drive shaft flanges. These are the bolts that connected the drive shafts into the flanges here. They are all Torx obviously, and mine are rusty as heck, but I think I'll be able to save them. One thing to note is they're relatively easy to take off, but to get access to these heads you have to be really careful with not destroying the rubber gaiter or boot of the drive shaft, and it takes bloody ages. So what you have to do is you have to kind of with one hand pinch the rubber boot away, and with the other hand go in with a ratchet and take them out. Otherwise you'll end up damaging the rubber boot. So that's just one thing. The prop shaft at this end here is super easy, and I won't even talk about it. The bolts, and they're not rusty at all because they're up in the protected bit transmission tunnel. That's the differential disconnected from the drivetrain. I'm lucky to say there are no breather holes anywhere. I've searched for ages looking for a breather hole, because all the diffs I've ever dealt with are linked for breathers, but this is not, so cool. You don't have to worry about any fluids coming out because it's obviously a sealed unit, so I didn't even bother draining the oil. Next, the actual removal of the diff is the difficult bit. First of all, getting to these bolts here, which I've got there, was an absolute menace. What I should have done is researched it before trying it myself, but I tried it myself of course, because that's what I do. I tried every combination of socket and spanner and everything. You can see it's an E14 Torx head. The only way you can do it, for reference, is get a shallow 3/8 inch drive E14 Torx socket, wedge it on, because there's no room. The problem is there's no room for normal tools, and then get a 3/8 inch non-ratchet head drive. Oh bollocks, I'm going to have a look at it. 3/8 inch non-ratchet driver with a swivel head there. You may need to cut the end off a bit. I did on the other one. This is a different one. to get it as short as possible. And even with that, you've only got about a millimetre play, and there will be lots of swearing. After that, what you need to do is get a 2-ton jack underneath the diff and start putting pressure, lifting it up slightly. That'll take the pressure off this bolt and allow you to turn the rest of the turn, like, which is 99% of it, by hand, because there'll be no pressure on it. If that gets these out, then you've got to remove, and this is really annoying, the anti-roll bar, because you just do. So you've got to get the anti-roll bar, which, surprise, surprise, was really difficult to get out. I'm not entirely sure I did it right. I removed the brackets from the thingy arms, the alloy arms up there. In retrospect, maybe I should have just removed the drop links from that bracket, and that would have made it easy. As it is like that. It's just started raining and I've got the bloody exhaust outside, which is annoying. It was quite difficult, but just about doable. Also the bolts, because my car is a rusty car, the bolts that go in there and there are incredibly rusty, and I had to fidget and wadge and put them in, put them out, put them in, put them out, heat them up, bang them about, because I was feeling, undone so many bolts I could feel they were about to snap when taking them out. If you snap them, it's such a pain in the arse. So I have to be really careful with those bolts, okay? Err on the side of caution. Once these bolts are out, the diff is resting on the jack. There's one more bolt to get out, which is that one there. It's a 21mm big thread. It's quite a high torque, so you'll need to get at least, I put a 2.5 foot bar on it, and be really careful. It's really hard, because there's something about this car that just makes everything really hard when working with the drivetrain. I don't know, you have to be really careful to seat the socket properly. So I spent half an hour at least trying different socket and bar and everything combinations until I was 100% happy that it was seated properly. If you'd have just gone in there and tried it, you would have rounded off the bolt. So take time, make sure you get that 21mm seated perfectly, a thick enough bar because it's got a big torque on it. Put a big 2.5 foot bar on it and just managed to break it free, which is good, and then the bolt comes out. At that point, the diff drops down. Next point, really important, make sure something like this. I've got like 4mm rubber, and I put it under. Which way did it set up? That there. Put it under there, because a cradle from the subframe comes around like that, and otherwise, if you don't, then the diff's just going to smack onto that and scratch the shit out of it. So I put that under there to make sure it would just not interact with it. As well as that, you'll need a carpet. I use that there, thick, kind of tough carpet, to go at the rear of the diff and wrap it all the way around here. Because what's going to happen is this diff, instead of coming down like all other diffs do, this one has to go like that around the cradle of the subframe. That means this bit there scratches the shit out of the body of the car. So you need to have that carpet around there to A, allow it not to catch on the body and dig in, and B, just not to smash the paint up. Okay, so that one needs doing. At that point, it's just the lift. So what you do is you get the 2-ton jack. On that lip there, obviously pad it with rubber and crap so it can't slip, B, doesn't damage the alloy. Right on that point there, and slowly drop it down, and it will naturally, due to the things we put in place, then just creep down until it gets to about 6 inches off the floor, when the jack obviously bottoms out. So at that point you need to get scissor jacks, 2 of them on each corner of the diff, there and there. Up a few mil, then move the 2-ton jack away. So then scissor jack it down to 2 inches. At that point, it's just a case of putting loads of padding around the scissor jack and on all the ground, loads of padding, and then the last 2 inches just kick the diff off. And because all the padding's there, it can't damage anything. And then, as to what we're going to do, well, let's have a think, shall we? Again, this is a 2-stage operation, 2-phase operation. We're doing phase 1 at the moment, which is a light refurb. The big refurb will come hopefully next year if I can get time off. The main thing I need to do is the pinion oil seal, which is in there. And I might as well just give it a bit of a lick of, it's all scrubbed down and a lick of paint. And probably not even a permanent paint job, but just to stop it rusting any further. Annoyingly, I've noticed another leak here. The gasket between the rear end and the diff body is leaking, and oil was coming out here. I've ordered another gasket as well, but I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to do that next year. I'll do that with the full refurb of all the suspension and bits, and I'll send it up to a shop and get it all blasted and done properly at that point. But I'll worry about that next year. So today, it's just a pinion seal. I was just wondering, maybe, in case it's your first go, maybe we'll quickly explain how the diff works from my understanding of it. I've only ever taken a few diffs apart. So what you've got is you've got the prop coming in, mates with this flange here, and obviously turns this. This is then attached to the pinion shaft, which is that nut there, which is the big thing I'm worried about. which obviously turns the pinion shaft. Down here, jigga 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 jigga. On the end of that, a wheel cog, which meshes with the ring gear. The ring gear is the reason why these diff housings are so big and heavy. Giant big wheel all the way around here, literally the size in there. One big gear in there. The pinion, the ring gear is then bolted to the actual differential. This is not the differential, this is just the casing. The differential is a separate unit inside. It's about the size of, I don't know, 2 fists, something like that. That is it's a self-contained unit. In there are a series of ring gears that allow the torque from the pinion shaft to go out on these output shaft to the drive shaft. But also to allow them to turn at different rates, obviously, because that's what the differential's for. It's to allow the wheels to turn at different rates so we can go around corners. What we've got to do is remove the pinion nut, that chugger in there. Now, a pinion nut is a drive shaft nut, proper drive shaft nut, that not only needs to be torqued, it needs to be thrusted, so it needs to be put in the correct amount of thrust. If you get it wrong, then the diff lasts a few miles and it all blows up, and it's a bloody nightmare. And by the way, I can't afford to replace this. It's £2,500 delivered for a new one, so I literally can't afford to buy it. The only reason I got this to manage to afford this car is because the money I earned of my previous one. Anyway, so what that means is when it all goes back together, that nut has to go the exact correct amount of thrust. Now, I don't have the tool you need to do that, of course, because I'm not a garage. My understanding is there's 2 redundancies we can do. One, I'm going to have to put markings on the shaft and on the nut. That's my alignment. Then I need to count exactly the amount of threads of this nut here to make sure that when we do go, it not only matches the mark, but it matches the amount of threads, which is going to give us our thrust. Also, we want to try and get, well, as a double redundancy, we want to try and get the torque right. That is the amount that the nut is, you know, the stiffness of the nut. So what I'm going to do, once it's marked up, I'm going to put a big old torque wrench on it. Hopefully I've got a big enough one. And I'm going to measure the amount of torque that bolt is torqued at the moment by slightly over torquing it. But it's all marked up, so it doesn't matter. Once I've got that measured, when it all goes back together, I can position it, I can count the amount of threads, and I can do a double check with my torque wrench. While I've got the anti-roll bar off, it's time to give it a bit of a shine as well. It's basically made of mild steel. It's not, you know, the nice steel that the car's made of. So it rusts to hell, so I've just ground it all back to metal pretty much. I'm going to put some treatment on it. I'm going to paint it, going to do the same with these brackets. And we've got the same, we've opened up some more spots on the car chassis that we're dealing with as well. So, well, that was a bit of a pig, but the old seal is now off, so let's talk about what we learned, and a lot was learned doing that. Okay, the first thing was I just wanted to give it some anti-corrosion rub down and some paint, which I've done here obviously, and to do that I put it on its back. This is the back here, thinking that would be fine, so I put it on its back, painted it, left it overnight, came back this morning. Oh, all the oil all 3 litres of oil had leaked out and gone on the floor. Yay! Brilliant. Turns out there's a tiny little, it does have a breather hole. It's there. I just had no idea it was there. How annoying is that? Spent the first few hours of the day cleaning up the shop. Live and learn, I guess, so I've got to fill it up now, which is a bit annoying, which means I need to get some sealant for this, and I'll worry about that later. Anyway, the next thing was to get the 32mm pinion nut off the pinion shaft there. The 2 ways of doing it. One is an impact gun with an impact socket, or 2 with a breaker bar. Me being me, I thought let's try a breaker bar the old-fashioned way first of all. No, do not do it. It's an absolute nightmare. The only way to do the breaker bar, I can't really show you now, but is to put bolts in there and there where the prop shaft was, hang out there, so you can grab them with a crowbar. And that's what stops the flange moving, and then put a huge whatever that is, 3/4 inch bar on it with a 5-foot extension and try and break it like that, and even that I couldn't break it, and it ended up bending the bolts that were in here and possibly even damaging this. I don't know, I hope not. Stupid, don't do that. So what I learnt was just buy one of these. I can see it, they don't cost very much. an impact gun. I've had it for ages, I just haven't really used it much because I haven't had much need lately, and this broke it with no fuss at all in a couple of seconds. I was absolutely amazed. So it's one of the many things you learn along the way. So for God's sake, use an impact gun. And it was no stress at all. It really worked. And what I've learned again is that I could have done, because of the impact gun making such an easy meat of that bolt, I could have done the whole thing with the diff on the car and avoided all this friggin' fuss we've been through. I'm so friggin' stupid. I could have made this literally a 2-hour job instead of a 3-week job or whatever it's turning out to now. Oh, viewers. So I took the bolt off. Then the pinion flange has to come off, which is this unit here. It's got the dust cover on it as well, came off with it. Most of you will probably have to pry it off with a puller, you know, like a hub puller, and that will do it absolutely fine. For me, it just came off. I just came off my hand, and the rest of the oil that hadn't leaked out the last night then came out, because yay. So that's off now, which is good, which gives access to the seal, which is kind of here. Which I've taken off now. You just smash it out. You don't need to keep it, obviously, so I've just smashed it out. Careful not to damage the actual diff housing. What it is this little guy here that's pressed in, and the inside is the sealing edge in there, which seals against the pinion flange, which is what failed. And it has little veins, I don't know if you can see that, little rubber veins on it, which as it turns, it directs the oil back into the diff. Yeah, and they will wear down over time, but this is the main thing that wears down, is the little spring. I've broken it getting it out, obviously, but there's a little spring that goes around here, then squeezes it onto the flange, and it just gets, it's just a shitty design on BMW. For some reason they just fail. I've never, in all my years of Nissans, I've probably, you know, dealt with, I don't know, 150 Nissans, 30 years old, never a single diff seal failure, so I guess it's just bad design. You can see the bearings in there, kind of little teethy things you can see in there, bearings, because it has to be pushed into those bearings at a certain doodah. That's it. So all I've got to do now is put the new seal in, and if you're careful, because if you can put the seal in wrong, you're screwed. And each one of those seals is what, 50 quid I paid for it, so you've got to be careful. You've got to push it in. You're supposed to use a proper tool. Surprise, surprise, I don't have it, so I'll bodge something up. But guess what? BMW promised that the seal would arrive yesterday, and no part of seal hasn't arrived, so I've got to wait and chase them up tomorrow. So that's as far as I can go for that. That's all the things I've learned. Anti-roll bar, stripped, treated, painted, jugga jugga jugga. I am an anti-roll bar. Brackets, and I've cleaned up the rubbers as well. Does it really matter that it was rusty? No, not at all. It's a big chunk of steel. It's never going to rust through. But if you might as well make an effort if it's a car you actually give a crap about. That's it. I'll report in whenever I get that freaking seal. Welcome back, viewers. It's another weekend, and the BMW parts have arrived. So we've got the new seal, and we've got it in, which is great. Putting it in is a very delicate operation. It's going to be tempting to try and force it in with your hands or force it in with a hammer. Don't do that, you'll break it. Also, it's one fit only, so once it's in, it will never come out again, or unless you break it. You have to break it to take it out, so be super careful. And they're like $50 each, so be real careful. So what you do is, there's probably a proper tool for it, but who has a proper tool? So you get a relevant sized socket. For me, 65mm, which means 80mm on the outside, and it's an 80mm seal. And then you get it like that. Seat it perfectly on the seal, and then you just hammer around the edges here very carefully, and constantly, every few hammers, you take it off, check, bit more hammering, take it off, check, bias left, bias right, constantly monitoring, because it will probably still go in slightly one side more than the other. You mustn't go in one side more than the other. It has to be perfect. Keep doing that, take your time, take 10 minutes to do it, and then finally, when it's 100% in and 100% flush, put a steel ruler over it, make sure it's flush. And that's it. It's a new seal. It's completely different from the old one in that it's not worn out. So I don't know if you can see on the inner lip, which was completely flat on the dead one, this one, the spring has still got some squeeze in it, and so you can see it's not flat, it's protruding inwards, and that's because it's it's a new seal, so that will last another 10 years or however long they last.
that's it. Reassembly now. So we need to put the pinion flange on, torque the bolt up to the measured, stuff that we did, and then think about reassembly on the car. Also, it doesn't matter that I've gone over, painted over the lines here, because this next year the alloy bit's going to come off and get sandblasted anyway, so let's not worry about that. Stand by. Ta-da! Pinion flange on. I thought I'd show you how I did it. So what I did was I got bolts, put bolts here and here. Obviously use sacrificial bolts because you will bend them and break them. So then you get a 3-foot crowbar, and you get like that. So this is how you do it with one person if you don't have friends like me. So get like that, and that's how you brace it. And then you get your socket, either 3/4 inch or 1/2 inch. If it's decent, you can just use 1/2 inch, like that, like so. Make sure you get a 6-sider, not a 12-sider. And then you get a 4-foot bar, pin it in like that. And then when the crowbar's in, you just squeeze them together. And if you've marked as well, marked a mark on the socket like that, you can slowly see it rotating around to your point, and you can see we're rotated to exactly the same point there. We've got the right amount of teeth, which is, well, it depends how you measure, but I measure that 1.5, so you're 1.5 teeth in, you're in, so it's at the correct thrust now. Fingers crossed, it's the first time I've ever done it, so there you go. So fingers crossed that should be thrusted right. It's just a case now, get everything back on the car and torqued to the correct torque settings. Stand by. Welcome back, viewers. Diff back on, fitted, all done. So there she is, jigga. Absolute nightmare to get on because I'm only one person and it weighs 60 kilos, but just a reverse procedure of how I got it on, and I just had to take a few hours doing it, wiggling, poking, trying not to ruin it, but we got it on, so there it is. Just a case of connecting up the drive shaft components then, so drive shaft right, drive shaft left, prop shaft front. And then torquing the bolts. It's really important to torque all of the bolts to manufacturer's specifications with a torque wrench. For the little guys here, it's 80 Newton meters, and they were easy to do, easy to get to, front and back, and that's done. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do the bolts that connect the differential to the actual car. So this guy here, the guy down the side, and a big 21mm bolt at the front, there is just not enough room under the car to get enough leverage to attain the torque, so I've had to do them tight as F. They are big bolts, so I'm not really too worried about it, and next time the car goes into a garage, I'll just bring a torque wrench and do them when I get some leverage on them. Otherwise, that's the drivetrain all back together and ready to go. So that's the end of this video. I hope it was useful. For me, I will carry on now getting the rest of the car back on, because unfortunately to do this type of job on this, you have to take all the shields and braces and stuff like that on, so it's another few hours for me, and then I've got to go on to my next project, which is repairing the exhaust. Bye bye.